Okay, with the filmmaking team of Stringhead, Matthew Vargas is the director. We got Ryan Wilson, the DP, and LaRoche, who was a sound designer, really great sound design in this film, is trying to sign in, ironically enough, is still trying to connect to audio. But let's get started on this podcast. So, Stringhead, first question is, what is a stringhead?
What is a string head?
Yeah, and in the
I
context of this movie, of course.
so that's actually a really great and interesting question to start out with because I think it kind of goes into the full point of the film of I think that stringhead is this symbol for the amalgamation of thoughts that wrap someone up and keep them awake at night. And it's also the inspiration for the film. A stringhead, I think, manifests from anyone's subconscious. And in this case, this story follows a single person's journey in their night with stringhead. There was actually, it's funny you asked that too. There was an earlier draft of the film where there was a second stringhead that appears in a very subtle way. There's a roommate that comes in and then he checks in on his friends. The roommate begins to leave, and as he's leaving, there's blue string attached to him. But I decided to leave that out of the script. In this case, I just wanted to focus on one person's story and their journey in the night.
Gotcha. So it's of course in the film, there's a creature, I guess, but I guess it's sort
Mhm.
of like in your head. It's like it's not a physical thing. It's just sort of there, I guess.
Yes, very much a subconscious monster symbolism, however you want to interpret it.
And where did this idea spawn for you? Where did this idea come from?
This idea spawned from a thought that I had around 3 a.m. one night. I was having one of these moments. I couldn't sleep. I had a lot in my mind, and I was trying to come up with a story to write. And I had thought about someone that was tired, sleepy, and then suddenly I imagined in my mind's eye there was a string that fell on my face. And in my mind's eye, I was pulling the string, and then eventually this person walked in the door that was wrapped in string, and I thought, wait, there's something bad can come from this. So from there, I snowballed, and actually, a lot of the writing process came through with Ryan Wilson here. Him and I sat down, and together we formed the script based off of this idea, and there were many drafts, which ended at this final version that you see. And actually, fun fact too, it was there's a moment in the film where there's a woman that enters near the end, and then it slows down, and there is music that begins to play, and then it's sort of this very subtle pull to something deeper in his life that happened with someone, either romantically or however else you want to interpret it.
Mm.
That was actually Ryan's idea, funny enough. I remember he pitched it as something very subtle in the background, but as we were shooting, it sort of changed to be this focus. So, ultimately, the idea just stemmed from one night I couldn't sleep, and I thought Shrinkhead was a great way to symbolize it.
Did you have problems like this before, like personally, like having like trouble sleeping and having this kind of string head for yourself?
Yes. Yes, I think that it's a very common thing either in my life and from what I hear other people's lives too. I think that when there are times either in your life where you're going through a lot, when I'm going through a lot, and I find that despite going through these moments in time where I have to process a lot of information, I still need to try to sleep. And I like to imagine that it's in those moments where there's something very special that happens that it's an exclusive but a terrible feeling that happens at night when you're trying to sleep but you can't. And I think that there are a lot of films that hone on the general idea of depression, anxiety, and night terrors even. But in this specific case, I feel like this specific feeling was something I wanted to hone in on in the form of Stringhead. Um, so in regards to how I experience Stringhead, it normally starts as one idea in my mind and then it branches into something else that formulates into something else. And then I have to catch myself eventually until I can either just deal with it or like at the end of the movie, I just get out of bed, go
Yeah.
get a glass of water or something, and just go back to sleep.
So the idea of this concept is that by the way, it's a great concept because people can relate to it. It's experimental. We're talking to you because you submit to the experimental festival, but it
Mhm.
really is a strong narrative. There's a distinct beginning, middle, and end. It's got a thriller aspect to it. of course, I'm just if I'm going to stereotype genres, and it's also very dramatic and basically it's a human kind of journey, and it's about him conquering this string head so he can sleep, right?
Right, exactly. And there was, and I think that there were a lot of experimental aspects to this
Yeah.
film. There's a lot of uh abstract symbolism, a lot of, risk in the form of there is not a single piece of dialogue in this film either. A lot of it is just putting these actions and all this string and objects in the face of the audience, hoping they can find some sort of interpretation from it. But the narrative is there. And the narrative as well is purposefully not in detail, as in there's enough to extrapolate a narrative, but we purposefully wanted the audience to be able to gather some sort of meaning, either for maybe something they can attach to, you know,
Mhm.
or they could form a narrative about what's happening for themselves, not having something spoon-fed, per se. And what's funny is a lot of people, I think, the narrative set kind of clicked with them when the woman came on screen. And the portrait specifically was on screen for only about half a second or 3 seconds. And then it was in that moment where they were looking at each other that a lot of people say is their favorite moment of the film because it's that connection that really made a lot of people click that there's a narrative there about this, what this person could be going through. One of my favorite interpretations is that he's going through a breakup, and a lot of the objects in the scene in the bedroom of hanging above him are related to that in some way.
Yeah.
In truth, from my perspective, all of those objects could be anything that he's thinking about in life. Um, and uh, like there's a bra that relates to a woman, right? And a relationship maybe in the past. There was money, which is a problem that I think is
Sure.
very real, to video games, childhood, and then behind Stringhead, you have time, which is the clock, and then the skull also behind them, which is death. Uh, yeah, it's very experimental, but definitely I think that in this way, the narrative is essentially just going with this person's mental journey as far as they go with it until eventually they snap out of it and just get out of bed. So that's to me the narrative anyway.
Yeah, there's so many things like what makes people stay up at night. Of obviously money, like first world problems, right? Money, like our jobs, like our past anxieties, or what the future holds. But it's interesting that a lot of people interpreted relationships. We're all about relationships, right? It's like that's sort of interesting that that's what people come to, right? Like and that I find that interesting that that's like I didn't see that. I personally didn't see that at all. I don't know why. I just more thought it was like he's just a young guy who's like scared of his future. But that was my impression. So
Everyone that I talk to seems to have a different interpretation of what exactly this
yeah,
person is
that's
thinking
that's the
about.
great thing about the
And
film.
it's always interesting to me to hear how people see the film because they are either extremely confused, or they are so attached to it that they stare at me from across the room until they get a chance to talk to me about it. It's very interesting.
And I just realized
There
too that we're all probably just projecting our own anxieties onto the film, right? So
That's what you're supposed to do. In
yeah.
my mind, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the point of Stringhead. And I'll give you something. I forget exactly what it was, but I remember telling my crew that, I was strangely happy. But this one girl saw it that I know, a friend of mine, and she said she wanted to get one of the objects actually tattooed to herself. And I thought, oh my God, like this is actually reaching people. But in any case, speaking about relationships and such, Ryan, if you want to chime in on this, because you were the one who brought up inserting the woman into the background of the film, and then we changed that. Um, how did you view how was that important to you to bring that up to me when we were in the writing process? Do you recall it all?
Yeah, I mean, I specifically, it's been quite a bit since probably about a year at this point. But when I remember just feeling like that portion of things, like we had the visual that we wanted to go for, but there was no motivation or inspiration behind it in that one little part. Like it felt like everything had been fully fleshed out in the story, and you would come with a full, concise idea. But that one part of the film sort of just felt like there was a gap there, and his there needed to be like this final push over the edge of like this one thing that's really been weighing on him, as opposed to just like the consistency of a bunch of little things. There needed to be that one big thing that finally just pushed him over the edge, like I said. Um, and then we were trying to figure out a way to incorporate that visually. And then, of course, 3 days before we go to shoot, we had to pivot studios because of budgetary and logistical issues. So we ended up shooting at a place built completely the opposite, for lack of a better way to put it,
Yeah.
completely opposite from what we initially intended. And this door just sort of happened to be there. So it kind of was like this happy last second mistake that sort of allowed us to incorporate that.
Yeah. So then when like just to go back, when did you first like read the script? Like were you guys like also you guys friends or like how did you guys get together and form this relationship?
Oh, we hate each other. Just never
Okay.
want to work with each other ever.
Yeah,
No.
we Matt used to work at the rental house that I used to rent gear from
Okay.
locally, and then Matt went full-time freelance, and then I started hiring him to be my first AC. So I do a lot of more commercial, corporate, doc, pretty much
Gotcha.
everything other than the narrative. And I was always venting to Matt on the side, like I really want to get more into narrative, man. I really got to figure, want to get this going. Um, and Matt came to me one day and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna write a short." And I was like, "Yeah, I bet you are, man. Everybody says that. We'll see how this
Yeah,
goes."
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, can't wait to not ever read it. But no, he came back to me and had it fully like, this is it. This is how I want to go with it. This is the story. Like I'm gonna make some changes to it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and what we can how we can visually bring this to life. But I think it was probably about a year ago at this point. Maybe even a little longer, like last November-ish. And then sort of throughout the holidays, bouncing around until finally it was like, okay, crew's available. It's, slow season. Everybody's good. Let's get this going. And I think we shot it in February.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. So three very, very long back to back days.
So you're usually do corporate work. So how does it feel for you to do like I was just I'm assuming I could be wrong that this is what you want to be doing. You want to be doing like narrative work like this.
Yeah, it's funny because around where we are, I joke around like my buddies and I where it's like it's always like grass is always greener because like the corporate and commercial stuff definitely pays better in our area, which is awesome. But like everybody sort of gets into this because they love filmmaking
Yeah.
and they love, features and narratives and the whole nine. And that was like an itch that I hadn't been able to scratch for a bit. So yeah, I was definitely excited about that. And it was to to be brief because there's like the list is infinite in the differentiations. But the thing that really just stuck out was just like usually you're, with corporate especially, like you're only trying to make something look good. You don't have to justify it at all. Like, and people say you do. I get like the idea of a, backlight. Let's have a window back there. So like the hair light looks motivated. But like in the film, you're not just trying to make something look nice. It all needs to sort of make sense for the story as
Yeah.
well, which is a very obvious base level thing to say, but it's not something that's always implemented for the other type of work that's been done. So really sitting down and thinking like, cool, we want this to look great, but how does this camera and this
Yeah.
lens tell the story? How does this color tell the story? How does this contribute to that? And the amount
So,
of
yeah.
thought we put into that.
No, it's funny that because you mentioned that because I basically wrote down when you're talking like about that, it's like you're serving the client in the commercial in world, and then you're serving the story. Like you just said it, like you're serving the story in this world. So it's you know what I mean? Like it's a different
100%.
space. It's a totally different
100%.
space, right? So because it's
Yeah,
all about the story, right? Like you're like every shot, every frame, every light is about serving what the thematic and what the story is about, right? So
1,000,000%. Yeah, usually, if you're shooting an interview or something, it's like, let's get the nicest camera, the nicest lens, the best
yeah,
lights. Like it just there's no like this camera serves that better because it's an interview. Just make it look nice. But for this, like the lens was like very specifically chosen for certain shots we wanted to pull off and things like that, which, again, quite obvious statement, but incorporating that was definitely different from the usual kind of work.
So I just want to go forward for a second, and then let's talk about like because
If
you did the color correction as well, right?
if I
Oh,
may
go ahead.
interject for one moment. So
Yeah,
just to add on something because Rochelle is not here, so I can't speak for them
yeah.
so I'm going to try to speak for them. Um, my sound designer, in a similar way, I believe that there is something tied in with commercial and corporate work for sound design and music, for that kind of thing. And then there's narrative. I think
Yeah.
that Rochelle's approach to sound design and how we thought about sound design was a complete tonal shift between the essentially the quadrants of the film, which was the opening scene, which when he's in a bedroom, which is very silent, it's a bit moody. The piano kicks in that leads you into the film, and then the silence of everything in the space and the piano that's aggravating up until the last half of that scene when it becomes a lot more subtle and sad. And there's this another mood that carries you until the end when it all comes full circle. And I think that Rochelle did a brilliant job creating that space in which the sounds can do this up and down tone shift throughout the
Mhm.
entire thing that to me also reflects what it's like to go through that at night. Because when you're falling asleep and you're trying to fall asleep, you're going up and down in your thoughts. And I feel like the sound design reflected that. So just to talk on that for a little bit,
Yeah.
because I know you want to move on to color grading, but I want to speak for Rochelle and just say that Rochelle does a lot of federal government work as a producer. For them to take their talents and put it to sound design for this was really great for
Yeah.
them and for me as a friend. So
Oh yeah, you
thank
guys
you.
are in DC, so federal government work for sound.
Yep.
I would like I would be interested in hearing about that from a outsider's perspective.
Yeah,
So
they're mainly a video producer, but
yeah,
they're talented in different ways. But I mainly know them as my friend and as a sound designer.
because as per this podcast, in 5 weeks there's going to be a big move happening, right? So in DC, right? So
Yep, getting close. Yeah, getting
Yeah.
close. Busy time
Yeah.
down here too.
You
yeah.
know what?
Every
That's a good point.
So
Yeah,
so I wanted to mention that. Listen, I do like I do this. I watch a lot of films, short films, right? Thousands a year. You know what I mean? I love sound design. It's like one of my nerdy kind of things. It's one of my favorite things. This is the next. This is like top 1%. I'm not just saying it. What sound design? There's a professional at this job in this work, and basically just watching it. Like I watched it again today or listened to it again today, and it's like they should be working in the film industry, basically. They will be, but it's that kind of type of sound design. So,
R-
anyways,
Rochelle's amazing.
yeah. So
yeah,
I
basically,
tell you what.
they should be
That yeah.
working in like in sound in the film industry and making some
They would
good money.
be
So yeah,
so happy to hear you say that.
yeah. Just to finish off, so basically, so there's like an interesting color correction in this film because there's lots, it's one location, but then obviously there's some like fantasy kind of elements to it. There's the red, there's the lighting with the red. I'm assuming this was not an easy color correction to do for this film.
yeah. No, especially for the opening and closing shots. It's meant to look as if it's in like one space and then it takes like this ethereal jump. The middle part of the film was in like an enclosed studio, to be built studio. Um, and then the beginning and end shots are in somebody's bedroom. And we were trying to go for very different looks. Everything in the middle, um, basically we were going for Insidious, right? It was like sort of the inspiration here, like the dream world that occurs in Insidious is a
Mhm.
bit more like the colors and everything are quite vivid. Whereas the rest of the film is a bit more of like a nostalgic, desaturated sort of look. So
Yeah,
this was sort of an attempt at that, where when he sort of enters this dream state and Stringhead appears, a lot of contrast, a lot of highlights, a lot of saturation, and then try to go for a bit of a hazier, older, like I said, nostalgic sort of look, especially for that opening longer take shot, trying to separate the two worlds as much as possible. But very much the opening shot was quite tricky to grade because of the duration of it, and all the adjusting that's going on throughout was making all of the colors and everything. There's a lot of keyframing. I'll just put it like that. A lot of keyframing, trying to get everything to not be oversaturated at certain points and having to counter correct through that minute long take.
And then you got that camera movement, I guess, when everything kind of turns into kind of fantasy kind of element, right? So
Mhm.
like when the camera pushes back. So yeah, great job. It's like I like that this film's it's very solid on a professional level, but it's a great story as well. So good,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much.
So Matthew, where did you find your actor? Because you mentioned because he's really acting with himself, right? And there's no dialogue, and he did a fantastic job. So where did you find your lead?
Justin Oratokai is one of my favorite actors to work with, and I know him because last year I led the 48-hour film project. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I've done one. Yeah, before. Yeah, it's an interesting experience. Go ahead.
So I entered as a leader for a team for the 48-hour film project. I'm pointing at the poster right now for that, but
Hmm.
we won second place last year for the 40 Hour Film Project in DC, and Justin was just an actor on that. Essentially, I put out a casting call to gather actors for that. Justin showed up. I liked him. I included him in the project. We worked extremely well together, and I wanted to work with him again. So after the 48 was done, which for that, we won second best film. We won second place. I received the nomination for it was the honorable nomination for best director. I forget exactly what it was called. And then we won a couple other awards, but Justin was great. And so when we were making Stringhead and I was writing the script and I was working with Ryan, I just couldn't help but think of anyone else aside from Justin in the role. So I reached out to him. I said, "Hey man, I liked working with you on the 48. Do you want to come onto this?" He said, "Yes." Like I do. Like I really, really do. So we got him on. And he's amazing. He takes direction so well. And also you can see it in his eyes, especially. And that's what I really like to look for when I choose an actor, is how well can they control their emotion with their eyes, because I think that's where the soul is, and you have to really sell that. So a lot of his terror, a lot of his grief, and um, and all that comes from the eyes. And also when he switches at the end, and Stringhead is finally revealed this sort of darker version of himself beyond the string, behind the string, you can see when he's looking at the camera in one of the final shots, and he's staring down at this wrapped cocoon on the bed, and Ryan can talk a little bit on this too, but his eyes are just staring, and it's like this void, it's like this sadness, but also this monster that's been created essentially from this subconscious. And um, Ryan, do you want to talk about the catchlight thing in that case?
To be super brief, I know we're probably wrapping up, but the yeah, we intentionally avoided going for a catch light in that shot near the end there because he was trying to play off the whole like sort of dead, not alive kind of look because we were trying to pop something in there, and then we sort of realized like we liked how it looked absent of that, despite it being a little bit untraditional,
Mhm.
um, and but thought it played well given where his character's sort of state is at that point in the film, given that he's no longer himself, if that makes sense, out of context of actually watching the film.
Gotcha. So yeah, so you guys basically shot in February, and then you're talking to us now. So like 10 months later, you like in the blog interview, you mentioned that the sound design took a while, but then I guess I'm assuming it's a good, cheap and fast theory where like you wanted a great and basically they're a great sound designer, but I'm sure they had other things to do while they're doing your film, right? So it took some time.
Oh,
And
dude, it's a whole thing. Rochelle was actually moving
yeah,
because they were getting kicked out of it was a whole thing. It wasn't even their fault. It was just a whole thing that was happening with the
yeah,
apartment and everything. So the fact that they went through all of that and then still went through and worked on sound design was just amazing. But yes, there were other things happening in life essentially
sure.
during that, but we were also just making sure that the sound design was what it needed to be. That was perfect because to me, sound design is so crucial, so important to all of it that we need to make sure one, it sounds good, it sounds pleasing to the ears, but also that it serves the story well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of thought that went into that.
So I'm assuming you guys are going to make another film, and I think this is great. I hope it does well on the festival circuit. It's sometimes you might have a little trouble like pinpointing exactly where it belongs, but I think that I think it's fantastic, and anything that we can do to help you guys get this film seen by a lot of people, we can. I can do that because I truly believe in it, and I don't say that often, but I believe in your film. So basically,
I
so I wish
appreciate
you guys the
that.
ultimate best success in the DC area. I like to see like there's a big contingent in the Baltimore DC area happening with films. I like to see it.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so
Thank you,
much. Really
Matthew.
appreciate the support. Yeah, thanks for letting me hop on too.
Yeah, of course. And well, let's talk again when you guys make your next film.
You got it. All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Take care.